Okay, hello everyone. Today I'm here alone and I'm gonna register this video alone. So welcome back on Italian Politics Explained. And I'm here alone today because I will talk briefly. I will try to be as short as possible about a particular topic, which I am quite interested in personally speaking. And because I worked in a university, so this is what we're going to talk about today. So Italian university system and how is uh, compared to the rest of the world, like the Anglo-Saxon world, so UK, US, Canada, etc., and also other countries in Europe. And in order to start and to give you an idea about how different is the Italian system, I will start with the trivial things or even silly things, which is about the titles that you get from Italian university, which is unique in the world. Because in every country in the world but Italy, and when I say every country in the world but Italy, I mean it, you are a doctor with a PhD, with a doctor of philosophy. In Italy, no, you are a doctor with any university degree. So you are a doctor with a bachelor, you're a doctor with a master, and you are a doctor again with a doctor of philosophy. And this is something very peculiar about the Italian system, and I think is a nice thing to start to start with, just to give you an idea about how different it is compared to the rest of the world. But now, from this, that is, if you want even a silly thing to discuss, we're going to try to dig a little bit more into it. And I will start citing actually an Italian professor, Professor Andrea Crisanti, which at the moment is also in the Italian Senate. I think Senate. He is in the parliament, anyways. And not long ago, I think December last year or January, early this year, he gave a speech in the Italian parliament after a scandal where the son of the chancellor or vice chancellor in the University of Italy, I think it was Verona, was hired as professor in the same university. Of course, in a sort of nepotism way. And so Professor Casanti mentioned in the Italian Senate, in the Italian Parliament, that in all his career, 40 years or something like that, he never saw a concorso pubblico, public competition in Italy, and I'm going to come back to this in a second, where the winner wasn't known before even the public competition took place. So, what Professor Crisanti meant by that? In Italy, unless other countries in the world, to become a professor or even to have a permanent position, say inside a university, you need to win a public competition, which we call concorso pubblico. Okay, and what is frequently done is that if the university wants to hire someone, they design the rules of this public competition to match the CV of the person. Okay, there are crazy stories in which, for example, they wanted to hire someone without a PhD, and so they made having a PhD a malus inside the public competition. So all the people with the PhD that they aim to become professor inside the university, they are sort of, they start with a deficit, if you want. They start behind someone without a PhD. Okay. And what you can say is, oh, okay, Mattia, but in most of countries in the world, we have direct hiring. Usually it's the school or the faculty that is deciding to hire someone. And yeah, that's true. Okay. But the interesting thing is this public competition, they are sold as a guarantee of we are hiring the best person. And in a sort of clear way. So they're sold to you, we are doing this properly, and we are aiming for the best person. In reality, what they do, in my opinion, is they remove accountability. Because when the university is hiring directly, so the school, so all the professors in the school are saying, oh, we want to hire this person because it's good, they are accountable for the decision they're making. In Italy, no, because you can simply say, oh, that person won the public competition. So no one is accountable hiring that for the hiring of that specific person. And which is the consequence here? I will look sometimes away because I sort of prepare some data to discuss with you. One of the consequences we have here is the academic inbreeding that is massive. Around the world, if you think UK, US, Germany, Australia, the academic inbreeding, which means people who has done most of their career, or even better, if you want to talk about pure inbreeding, is they spend all their career in the same university, starting from undergraduate maybe, or at least on the PhD ongoing, is very little. Okay, in US the highest estimation I found is 15%. Most of estimation they say 5%. In Germany is around 10% again. UK is similar. In Italy it goes between 50 and 80%. And we have some subjects, especially in the humanities, for example, which is probably above 90%. Which means that all the professors in the university, they did all the career there. And they never move out. And also, there is it's not open internationally. Because you understand me that if this is a block system, it's a closed system, inside the same university, not even inside the same country, how it can be open to overseas competition is impossible. While, like in countries, it's famous that in countries like US or UK or Germany, they go to look for the best people in the world. And you have professors coming from, I don't know, look at US, you have professors coming from Europe, coming from Africa, yeah, China, Japan, South Korea, wherever. Okay? In Italy, it's extremely unlikely to have something like that. I didn't study in Italy, and I had one professor with an overseas background, one. Okay? And amongst all the other professors, and one professor, Italian, who did the PhD in another university. All the rest, they did the PhD in the exact university where they were professors. Okay, so this is the situation that we have. And when you look at the funding strategy in Italy, because I think all this stuff is connected, is that unlike, for example, US or UK, etc., in Italy, a sort of performance-based funding, performance-driven funding, as you want to call it, is up to 20%. All the rest of the funding is sort of based on the number of students that you have every year, or sometimes it's historical. No, that university usually, maybe, I don't know, they have, Italy is an old country, all infrastructure, so maybe university is in the vice chancellor offices in the historical city center, in maintenance, because you're not building, and so they have some sort of funding for that. Okay, but the competitive base, performance based funding is very limited, up to 20%, and in the data I found, they include Horizon Europe and European funding, which means that 20% in reality is even lower. Okay, because to get to the 20%, you need to include funding from Europe, which include Horizon Europe. Now there is this new plan that is temporary, based on the money that Italy got after COVID from the European Union as well. So to reach this 20%, okay, we need to include mainly European funding. So it doesn't depend on the Italian government. Okay, it depends on being inside the European Union and having access to that. If you think about US, for example, there is tuition fee, for example, and the mobility of the students inside the country is even higher. So, which means that a very good university with a lot of students, where many students can go, can be even outside a big city. And then you have federal grants, you have endowments. So people that donate money to the university, or maybe they give grants, private entities that they want to do a study, research, and collaborate with university. Internet is very rare. I think we have two exceptions. People who cite Milan Polytechnic and Turin Polytechnic, but these are exceptions in Italy. They're not the rule. And even these that are, they are sort of work in a different way, more, if you want, closer to the international way compared to the to the Italian standard. They're way behind in all the ratings around the world about university compared to UK university, German university, US university, and so on. So at the end of the day, you have one or two exceptions that they sort of work better compared to how is the Italian system. That they create innovation and so on. And to be precise, these are polytechnics, so which are focused mainly on engineering subjects. So they have already an advantage in the sense, if I can say, but still they are way behind the international competitors. So there is a massive lack of competition. And even if you compare to Germany, to UK, there is a massive lack of performance-based funding. It's very low compared to the rest of the world. Okay? And then we get to the career. Okay, all this you can sort of go down to it's all connected. Let me say that. Okay, so you can go from the top to the bottom. You can go down to the bottom of all these specific topics, and you can see that they're all connected to each other. So how can you make your career in Italy, in the university? I already mentioned you need to win a public competition. But how do you go up? Which are usually the requirements? In all the world, publication, peer-reviewed publication, so manuscripts, papers, or books, but in academic press, are usually what matters. Okay, along with teaching experience, of course, but this is the first thing. In Italy, it's not like that, or at least it's not necessarily that. Maybe nowadays things are changing slowly, very slowly. So probably they are way better off than how they were compared to, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 years ago. But especially in the humanities. I'm sorry to say that, but it is like that. You can see, and I could give you some names of full professor in philosophy, law, literature, whatever, who became full professor in the Italian university without having any publication. Peer review? No, absolutely not. They have maybe few books, for example, but not in serious academic press, for example. The evaluation was a bit mixed between the disciplines, so that's why I say the humanities, they were, for example, a bit worse in that sense. What you need was a national qualification to be qualified to be professor, but it didn't really require to have peer review publication or anything like that. And this caused the market not to be open. As I mentioned before, again, everything is connected. So if the competition is not done as is done around the world, but it's done in a completely different way that relies on, I don't know, you publish a monograph, for example, it was very common in philosophy. You publish a monograph about a famous philosopher, one or two, that's it. Your job is done. It's published usually in a commercial publisher. Yeah, maybe a bit specialized in essays or publishing essays or stuff like that, but it's still not peer review. It's not a serious international academic journal or publisher. And that's it, and that is enough for you to become professor. If you are liked by your supervisor in that university that already is held the position there before you, that's it. Your career is done, and explains the inbreeding. This explains the inbreeding. You have already the position already for you in the same university where you did the PhD, where you did the master. Until the 80s, I think Italy didn't have the PhD. So you could do from the laurea. So you have one degree in philosophy, chemistry, physics, mathematics, one degree. That's it, 5 years. That's it. If the professor there liked you, or I don't know, was friends of your father, you publish a couple of monographies in, I don't know, about some philosopher, and you're a professor. And your career is there. So that explains the very high inbreeding especially in some faculties, especially in some universities in Italy. There was also a paper that I will put maybe after in the description of the video, where they did an analysis of the surnames of the academic staff in some Italian university, showing how the variability of the surnames was quite low. I think was Professor Alesina, who was an economist in Harvard University, who did the paper, if I remember correctly. But anyways, I will put in the description. So this is the situation, a bit the situation about Italian university. So to go back where we started from Professor Crisanti. By the way, Professor Crisanti was now he's in Italian Senate, as I say, but he's professor, I think, in Padua University. But he spent part of his career abroad in UK, at Imperial College, I think, if I remember correctly. So he has a very good understanding about how stuff works in Italy and how stuff works overseas. So when he said in the and I'm going to cite him now a bit more, when he said that in Italy the stuff are completely different. In the Senate, he said that the inbreeding academic staff in Italy is 80%, at least 80%. The European average is 55. In UK, the average is 33. So we have a problem. We have a problem. We are way above the European average. Okay, and to be fair, even the European average, I don't think is a good comparison, because in the European Union, for example, you have some still emerging countries in East Europe, which maybe they have struggles to attract people from overseas to teach in the university, to do research in the university. So if they have some inbreeding there, is maybe not because the system doesn't work properly, but it's because they still need to be able to attract people from overseas. This doesn't mean that they're not going to be able in the future. Maybe they will. It means that Italy is not able to do it at the moment. Okay, but when you look at countries that they are more in the West Europe, that they should be more similar, I would say, to Italy, like Germany, UK, France, and so on. The inbreeding in Italy is way higher than there. And I'm not talking about US, which is the inbreeding there is even lower than UK, for example. So this is also connected to the topic that we discussed in the last videos, where we mentioned how many Italians are leaving, especially young Italians with 1, 2, 3 university degrees. So high skills Italians that are leaving, and they're leaving most of the time because of that. They're leaving because if you see little possibility of fairness inside the university system, you prefer to go overseas. If you want to try, at least even just try to have an academic career in the university, and you are good, and but you don't have the right connections, you prefer to go overseas. Because you know that if you go to US, if you go to UK, if you go to Australia, who you are and what you do is what's going to matter. Sorry, not who you are, but only what you do and how good you are is going to matter for your career. If you do great research, it's gonna be evaluated in properly. It's gonna matter for your career. In Italy, it matters only who you are most of the time, and that's why many good Italians, they prefer to leave, because this is how is the situation in Italy at the moment. I think I will stop here for now, for today. I touched many topics, and I was quite brief. I don't want to be longer than this. I will put some articles in the description of the video, just to give you more information about what I've talked today. And if you have any question, leave a comment here. And thank you for listening. Bye.